Hi there, and welcome to the Still Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Fortune Paole, and if you're new here, welcome to a space that's all about progression, not perfection. The fact that we are becoming people, which means we have not arrived at who we are meant to be yet, but we are just getting to our destination. And so I invite you into this space and happy Still Learning Monday. Hi, guys. I hope that you're well. I hope that your week is off to a great start. I am definitely coming off of a really great weekend. I had a skiing trip that I went to. It was cold but outside, and it was an event that I was hosting with a social collective that I myself and a group of friends are a part of called Outside Collective, and we host events and activities, and they're lots of fun. So if you live in the DMV area, you should definitely come up. We had our first event of 2026. It was really successful, and I watched the videos and I really become really emo, like very emotional. This was definitely something that exceeded my expectations. I knew it was going to be great, but I guess I didn't realize how much it was going to be great for others too, and the impact that it was going to have on me, and like the boost of morale, but also just like confidence that we're doing the right thing, we're in the right direction. And so I am really proud of what we did, what we put together, and I'm so excited for what the future holds for us. I really am grateful for this past weekend, and just I think what this past weekend showed for me is how much we crave human connection, how much we need that and need to do life with people. We gave a toast at the end of the weekend, and that was something that I said, and I did not prepare the toast at all, but it was what really came to my heart, which was just like, you need to do life with people. You need people. And I think that is just something that really has to be emphasized right now in the current climate of our country. And I don't know how deep this conversation is going to get. I don't know how much I want to say. Should I say too much? Should I say too little? How much of my thoughts on what's currently going on I should give? Because these are my thoughts. These are my opinions. These are my takes. They're not facts. I would like to put that out there. They're not facts, but this is like my lens and my views as a believer, but also as a human being with what's going on, and how I think it's really hard to not feel hopeless in times like this. But this weekend has given me a renewal of hope in people, and people who committed themselves to a ski trip that costed money. It was not free, guys. It was not free. And skiing is expensive. Fun, but expensive. But committed their time, their weekend, took, who knows, time off from work, like genuinely showed up. And that was just a privilege to host people in that way, and it really be invested in that way. It was like, wow, like thank you so much. But it also gave me this hope of like people still want to be there for each other, want to support each other, still believe in each other, like believe in one another. And I think that is what we really need right now in our country, that reminder. I think there is a lot of fear mongering that we are seeing in social media, seeing all over, and how much of us are actually like stepping outside and really coming to know and understand how people actually feel. Because how people are one way online is completely different from how they are in person. And also, like, you are seeing such a small fraction of the world and thoughts and opinions online, like such a small subsect, because there's also AI which literally curates your feed for whatever you're liking. Like confirmation bias is very much a thing. So you're not going to see anything that stands outside of that confirmation, that stands outside of that bias. And so what you're consuming is only going to be affirming more fear, affirming more hopelessness, affirming more anger, right? You're not going to see as much as a positive or what's on the other side. And you have to definitely be more intentional about seeking that out right now. Because, like I said, it is very easy to become hopeless in this time. And I find that as I'm going through the book of Isaiah right now, it has given me a heart for our country. Because I will admit, guys, I was just so baffled by everything. Like, I guess a part of me has grace, and then another part of me is confused as to how people lived in ignorance for so long. And I just have so many thoughts and feelings regarding just certain things that are happening in our country. And sometimes I'm just like, I don't get why you don't get it. Why couldn't you see it? And maybe the level of access to information or the experiences that I have had in life have given me a privilege and advantage to not be so disillusioned by lies and by propaganda and fear mongering. Like, people don't know how to identify that. And it's not until things get to this point that people are now getting that there's a problem, when there's always been a problem. Like, we've always been building up to this. Like, this does not happen overnight. What we are currently experiencing in our country is not something that happens in the blink of an eye. This is something that is developed and planned out and calculated for years in the making. And there were so many signs, so many events, so many occurrences before these ones that we had turned a blind eye to. I think a part of it, we also became so desensitized to. Like, I definitely think there's a level of purposefulness in terms of feeding people and showing us time and time again, like school shootings and injustice and police brutality, like constantly feeding that into our mind and like building up this sense of hopelessness, demoralization within people, this sense of fear. There is definitely a tact to that, because it's a lot more easier to manipulate people who are fearful and hopeless and desperate than it is to manipulate people who are full of hope and who are aware and who are able to decipher and see behind the fog. And so I just couldn't believe what was happening and what is happening right now. But I also can believe it. Like, it is such a duality that I feel here. A part of me is like, how did you not see this coming? Like, how did you not see this coming? I mean, at this point, they have said it verbatim out of their own mouths, their plans and what they want to do. And there has been too much information. I mean, we have too much information, too much access. I have been saying this for over a year now, but we are currently in a climate and in a time where ignorance can no longer be an excuse, especially if you live in America, if you live in the Western Hemisphere. Ignorance can no longer be an excuse. It is too blatant, it is too direct, it is too in your face for you to not know what's actually happening anymore. And I do give grace for certain things like reading illiteracy and not having proper education. And I have a lot of grace for that, because it isn't until when things like this were happening in our country and like when I was like, do people not actually know like checks and balances, the three branches of government? Like, these are simple foundational things of civics and US government. And to find out, no, not everyone knows that. And I I had a very privileged education system, and it's not even like I'm coming from the background of a private school. I'm just coming from the background of a state that invested in the education system. And even that had its flaws. There's definitely things that I had to learn about the culture, about society, about Black history on my own that were never taught in school. And I'm someone who also is very fascinated and very interested in history and governance and political history and just the framework of that. And so I am someone who's very interested in those things. And so that also aided in that. But I was like, even now to this point, and if we have different education systems and don't have the same level of understanding of governance, at this point, this isn't even a political issue, it's a human issue. This is humanitarian. And everyone should be able to understand this because everyone's a human being. And so for me right now, I'm just kind of like, how how are you sitting here? Like, I had no idea where is this coming from. This is not what we were promised. Of course not. Like, why would you think it'd be any other way? And I don't how are and I think the thing that frustrates me the most during this time is actually how people are justifying things in the name of religion and God's name, like using God's name in vain and misrepresenting the Lord. And that's really what frustrates me. Picking and choosing Bible verses and picking and choosing how they want to serve the Lord, and very much this whitewash. And I'm just gonna be so honest in this episode with you guys, and I might ruffle some feathers, but like very whitewashed the version of Christianity. Because I'm like, I don't think reading the same Bible, we're reading the same text, we don't know the same God who literally in the scripture talks about loving the foreigner and taking them in as your own. And as someone who comes from immigrant household, like my family was not born here. I am the only one who was born here, so very much raised in an immigrant household. And just to see and know what's happening in this country, a country that is built off of immigration. The only people who are indigenous to this country are indigenous people, Native Americans. If you are not that, you are an immigrant. This country was built off of immigrants and slavery. And so to see it's giving, she was too stunned to speak because, guys, some of the things that's happening right now, I'm too stunned to speak, but I also am too numb to feel. I found myself have grown numb to what is happening and just being like, who are we? Who are we at this point as a people, as a nation, as a country? Who are we? What do we believe? What do we stand for? What do we understand? Because we cannot be brainless puppets. And the anger and the frustration that I feel, I'm telling you, it's not even a fraction of what I'm sure God is feeling. Like the amount of injustice. I was literally reading Isaiah chapter 10 today, and I encourage you to read Isaiah chapter 10 verse 1 to 4 because it talks specifically about woe to them who oppress the widow and harm the fatherless. Like it speaks to how these things that is happening, it's not bringing God joy. God is not sitting up there and is like, yay, period, keep going. Like, no, he is disheartened. He is heartbroken. He is angry. And honestly, I think we need to fear the Lord again because like, we need to be in a country that fears the Lord because I am fearful for what is going to become, but yet I'm hopeful. And I know that sounds strange, like, Fortune, how can you be fearful and yet hopeful? And I know I just talked about all the ways that I have become frustrated and angered by what's happening in our country, but let me tell you why I'm hopeful and why this weekend was a reminder to remain hopeful, and that we have not completely lost the plot, though it feels like we have completely lost the plot. Since the first election of this current administration in 2016, when that happened, I believe a huge veil was torn away from our eyes. And as hard as a pill it was to swallow, I mean, people of color already knew this, but I think on a much more grander scale, it became way more apparent, a lot more bolder, the level of racism and injustice and sexism and all the isms that are so apparent and embedded within our country and in our society. And I think that was when all these lies and level of ignorance that we were living in was just being torn away. Just being torn away. Like I really do think we're in a state of purging. And that may sound foreign. Like, Fortune, what do you mean a state of purging? What I mean by that is that everything's being exposed. Everything's being put on the table. You cannot lie to yourself and you can't lie to anyone anymore. Like, you are going to see, know, and experience the truth whether you want to or whether you don't. You cannot hide in darkness anymore, and there is a light that is just coming upon our nation that has exposed so much truth, and it has been a heartbreaking, painful revelation that we have been enduring and that we have been experiencing. But that makes me so much more hopeful because we aren't living in the dark anymore. So many things are coming to light, and we are actually having a better understanding of our predicament. And though having a better understanding of our predicament doesn't always feel good, it makes us more knowledgeable about how we can make decisions that can be for good. And I have hope because we are dismantling ideas and an attempt to dismantle systems, or just not standing for systems and ideas that are oppressive and that are tearing lives and families apart, that are killing innocent people. And we are just not standing for that. And the media won't show you that. It will feed you a lot more hopelessness, but it's truly been hopeful seeing people march and stand up against injustice and speak up for one another and stand by each other and shelter each other and put their lives on their line to save another life. Like, truly, it is a reminder that as human beings, we care for each other and we will unite with one another. That is so hopeful for me, and to see the exposure of what has been done in the dark come to light and to see our response to it. Some responses are questionable. Of course, we're always going to have questionable ones, but majority, I think it's really dawning on people that this is not what I subscribe to. This is not a life that I want to live in. This is not a life that I want other people to have to live and endure. This is not what I foresaw for our country, for our nation, for my future, for my family, for our children. Like, this is not what I want it to be, and I won't stand for that. And I truly believe, like, justice is going to come on this nation as truth is being revealed. And I know that to be true because of God and who He is. And I know there's been a lot of misrepresentation of the Lord during this time, but reading His word has been such a point of sustenance and a point of hope for me. When I think about the Israelites and in Judah and Jerusalem, and when Babylon came in and invaded them, and there's a lot of destruction, a lot of tearing down, and that doesn't seem so like optimistic and positive. You're kind of like, oh, okay, God, where's the hope in this? There's a lot of destruction, a lot of things coming to an end, but understand that what God is bringing to an end is the injustice, it's the perversion, it's the oppression, it's the wickedness that is rampaging throughout. And I have hope because after that comes a new dawn, a new age. There's hope and there's restoration. And sometimes you need to strip down the foundation because the foundation was terrible to begin with. And America, historically, and I'm not going to get too deep into this, but please educate yourself if you want to get really deep into that, is historically the foundation is rooted in the oppression and injustice and enslavement of Black people, people of color, period. We have built our system off an unfair, unjust system. Like there is the foundation of this literally was the taking and the stealing and the slaughtering of innocent lives. And don't get me wrong, we made amendments. It's so interesting to me how we add amendments, but don't erase the amendments that were the problem. Like we keep the old amendments, but then we make new amendments to try to fix the old amendments, but don't technically remove the old amendments, like make it make sense. And so the foundation here has always been a bit shaky, to say the least, right? And so I really do think there's just being a stripping and an exposure that's happening. And there's a lot of hope to come of that. Because if our foundation, if our framework, if our understanding, if our reality is being completely upended and we are now only facing the truth, what do you want to do with that? How do you want to move forward with that? What do you want? And maybe the country seems too big of an idea for you because you're going through your own things in your own personal life. Okay, what do you want it to look like for you? How are you someone who's going to be an aid in justice and in compassion and in kindness? Are you someone who's just going to sit back and do nothing, thinking and doing nothing, you're safe? Let me tell you something. Complacency doesn't keep you safe. It just makes you part of the problem. And so what do you want to do? How do you want to build this up? Because listen, guys, everything's being upended right now. Things are falling apart, industry systems, and there are people who are trying to build and make new systems that favor them and not the people and not you. But that doesn't mean that you are useless or voiceless or incapable of doing something. You are. And people are doing something. They're gathering, they are hosting, they are marching, they are protesting, they are speaking up. Because we also want to come together and build something, build a place, build an environment, build a country, a people, a life where we remember that we are all human and we are all one, and that people deserve to have life and not to fear for their life, and people should not be taken advantage of, and people should not be wrongfully harmed, wrongfully accused, wrongfully killed. And we want to do that because we want to be able to be human and love one another in that way, and that fills me with so much hope. And you start realizing that when you step outside of the isolating bubble. During this time, it's so easy to feel so isolated in your feelings and your experiences and what you're going through. It's so easy to feel isolated in your thoughts and your ideas, especially with social media only going to be affirming that and sending you that confirmation bias. So it feels even more isolating. It feels like this is the only thing that's happening. It kind of locks you in this cycle. And you have to step outside of that and kind of see the bigger picture and where do you want it to go and where it is going. I know right now it looks like it's going to the bin. I don't believe that, because I see people rising up and taking a stand. And most importantly, I see God rising up and taking a stand. And God's hand is here and He is with us and He is going to restore our nation. And it has become a prayer point of mine that we return to the original design, because I am an American and I am proud to be an American, though there's many times that America has made it hard for me to say that. I am grateful for the life that I have here, and I understand the privilege that I have in the life that I have here. And to even be able to say this and to have freedom of speech and to even be able to protest and do the things that we are doing in this country, what a privilege. Because in other places, people will be killed. People cannot do that. They will be imprisoned, lose their livelihoods, families. And so, America, despite its flaws, it is a country that has brought people freedom and has changed people's lives for the better and has had a positive influence as it's had its negative ones. And I am proud to be an American and I want to be a part of making an America that I'm proud of. And I think many of us do. And I see that coming and I am hopeful of that. And there's a new light, a dawn that is coming over the darkness in our nation. And if you're frustrated, if you're angry, if you're confused, if you're like, what is going on? What do I do? You are so valid in that. You really are. But I do implore you not to lose hope. And I want to encourage you to think about the ways that you can be part of building a country that you can be proud of. And that starts off being a person in this country that contributes to society in a way that brings that, who is compassionate, who is thoughtful, who where you don't have to agree with everything, but can we find a middle ground? Is there grace that we can give? Is there mercy that we can show? The reminder that if you cut if you cut us, we're gonna bleed the same. The fact that we are human and we are living in this collective experience joins us together, and it's something that should empower us to feel hope and to have hope. We have hope. We have hope. We have hope. And I know that sounds crazy. How do you have hope in such hopeless situations? But we have a God who sees what's going on and he's not doing nothing. God is not doing nothing. He's always working 24/7 and he is building within ourselves and within our world people who are carrying his heart, because the same way this is burdening him, what's happening, he's allowing it to burden our hearts so that we will be empowered to show his love and his grace and speak up against injustice, because he is a God of justice, and fight for one another, fight during this time. Don't give up. Don't give up, because hope is on the other side and a new light, a new dawn is on the horizon. And so I hope that you guys enjoyed today's conversation. I know it was a bit of a heavier one, but I really do hope that it gave you hope in a time that may seem a little hopeless. And I will see you guys next week for another episode of Still Learning. Bye.